I never imagined that something as simple as cleaning out a drawer could change my life. I was organizing some old papers in the study when I found them. They were tucked underneath a stack of receipts and bills, folded neatly but clearly hidden. My fingers shook as I unfolded the first one, a simple piece of paper that instantly turned my stomach. "Dearest Anna," the letter began. I read on, the words growing more intimate with each sentence. The man's name wasn't signed, but the way he wrote to my wife like she was his world made my blood boil. I dropped the letter, my hands clammy. For a moment, the room spun. Was this some mistake? Anna and I had been married for almost 10 years. We had a good life, or so I thought. I forced myself to open another letter. "I can't wait to see you again," it read. "I dream of the next time we're alone together." Alone together. The words burned into my mind, and I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. My first instinct was to storm into the kitchen and confront her right then and there. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the shock, or maybe it was the nagging doubt that I didn't have the full story. Either way, I knew I couldn't confront her without more proof. Instead, I put the letters back where I found them, my mind racing. I would watch her. I would find out who this man was. And when the moment was right, I'd confront her, and him. I wouldn't let her lie her way out of this. She owed me the truth. But first, I needed to know everything. The next few days were torture. Anna continued on with her daily routine, smiling as if nothing had changed. She kissed me goodbye in the mornings, texted me during lunch breaks, and sat beside me on the couch every night as we watched TV. But I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was wrong. At night, when she thought I was asleep, I'd hear her phone buzzing. She would sneak out of bed, pad softly into the living room, and whisper into her phone. Every time she did, it felt like another piece of our marriage was cracking apart. That's when I decided to act. I bought a tracking app, installed it on her phone when she wasn't looking, and waited. I didn't feel good about it, but I convinced myself that I had no other choice. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. For a week, I followed her every move. At first, it seemed like she was just going to work and coming home, nothing out of the ordinary. But then, one night, she told me she had a late meeting at the office. I checked the app. She wasn't at the office. She was at a hotel. My chest tightened as I stared at the little blinking dot on my phone screen. A hotel? That was it. I had my proof. I grabbed my jacket and keys, the anger bubbling inside me. This was my moment. I was going to catch her in the act. There would be no denying it. As I drove to the hotel, my mind raced with a million thoughts. Was she meeting him right now? Was this the guy from the letters? What kind of man would go behind another's back like that? By the time I reached the hotel, I was ready to explode. I parked in the back, slipping through the lobby unnoticed. My heart was pounding in my chest as I found the room number. Room 702. I stood outside the door, fists clenched, ready to barge in and confront them. Without thinking, I kicked the door open, expecting to find them tangled in each other. But instead, I found something else entirely. The door slammed against the wall, and the sound of splintering wood echoed in the hallway. My breath was ragged, adrenaline pumping as I took a step forward, ready to unleash hell. But what I saw froze me in place. Instead of Anna and her lover in some compromising position, there were 4 people sitting around a small table, all of them staring back at me with the same shocked expression. One man stood up, tall and imposing, with a stern face and cold, calculating eyes. He didn't seem surprised by my entrance, just annoyed. Behind him, in the corner of the room, was Anna. She wasn't wearing the seductive clothes I had imagined. No, she looked professional, like she was at work. Her hair was tied back in a tight ponytail, her expression unreadable. She was holding a tablet, her fingers frozen on the screen. I felt my heart pounding in my throat. What the hell was this? "Sir, you need to leave," the tall man said, his voice deep and commanding. He reached into his jacket and flashed a badge, an official one. FBI. My brain couldn't process what was happening. FBI? Anna? What the hell was going on? I looked at Anna, waiting for her to say something, anything to explain this nightmare. But she just stood there, her eyes wide, her face pale. "Anna?" I managed to croak, my voice trembling. "What is this? Who are these people? Who the hell is this guy?" The tall man stepped in between us, his face set in stone. "I need you to calm down, sir. You're interrupting a federal investigation." "A what?" I almost laughed. This had to be some kind of sick joke. You're telling me that my wife is involved in some kind of investigation? No, no, no. I've seen the letters. I know what's going on. Michael, stop. Anna's voice finally broke through. She stepped out from behind the table, her eyes pleading. You don't understand. Please, just calm down and let me explain. But I wasn't ready to calm down. Explain? You're sitting in a hotel room with a bunch of agents. What about the letters? What about all the lies? Her face softened, but there was still tension in her eyes. The letters. They're not real, Michael. They were part of my cover. I couldn't tell you. I wanted to protect you. I stared at her, the world crashing down around me. I had been so sure, so certain that I knew the truth. But now, nothing made sense. Anna stepped toward me, her hands trembling as she held out the tablet. I couldn't bring myself to take it. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. Michael, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, I've been working undercover for the last 6 months. The letters, the late nights, the meetings, it was all part of an operation. That man you saw me with? He's not a lover. He's my handler. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I staggered back, trying to grasp the reality of what she was saying. Undercover? For the FBI? And you never thought to tell me? Not once? Anna's eyes filled with guilt. I couldn't. It was too dangerous. You were never supposed to find out, but now. I cut her off, my anger bubbling back to the surface. So I was just some pawn in your game? You let me think you were cheating on me. I've been losing my mind for weeks. You could have told me, trust me. I wanted to, she said, her voice cracking. But there are protocols, Michael. I had to keep you safe. Safe? The word felt hollow. I had been anything but safe. My mind had been torn apart by suspicion, jealousy, and rage. And now, standing in this sterile hotel room, surrounded by federal agents, I felt like I didn't know my wife at all. The tall agent stepped forward again, his tone all business. This operation is classified, and it's not something we take lightly. Your wife has been an essential part of this team, and tonight was critical. You've compromised our mission by coming here. I looked at him, barely able to suppress my contempt. I don't care about your mission. I care about my marriage. Anna flinched at that, her eyes dropping to the floor. The silence between us felt like a chasm that I didn't know how to cross. Michael, she whispered, her voice shaky, I never wanted to hurt you. But this job, it's who I am, it's what I do. And now, I need to know if we can move forward from this. Her words lingered in the air, and for the first time since bursting into that room, I felt the weight of everything sink in. I had spent weeks preparing for the moment I would catch her, imagining all the ways I could confront her betrayal. But there had been no betrayal, at least, not the kind I expected. Instead, I was left standing in the wreckage of secrets I never saw coming, staring at a woman I loved but suddenly didn't understand. And I wasn't sure where to go from here. I left the hotel in a daze, my mind still trying to catch up with what I had just learned. The cold night air hit me like a slap, but it wasn't enough to clear my thoughts. Anna, a federal agent. My wife had been living a secret life for months, right under my nose, and I hadn't seen it. I had been so focused on the idea of her cheating, so consumed with jealousy, that I never imagined there could be something bigger going on. I drove aimlessly for a while, not sure where I was headed. I didn't want to go home, not yet. The house, our house, now felt like a lie. Every room, every shared moment, it was all tainted with this secret she had been keeping. After what felt like hours, I found myself parked by the lake where Anna and I had our first date. The moonlight shimmered off the water, and for a brief second, I could almost pretend things were normal. That this was still the same world I had known just a few days ago. But nothing felt normal anymore. I leaned back in the driver's seat, trying to calm my racing mind. I had spent weeks preparing for the moment I would confront her, rehearsing the angry words I would throw at her and imagining how she would crumble under the weight of my accusations. But now, everything was turned upside down. There was no affair. The love letters were fake, a prop in some larger operation. Her late nights, her secrecy, they were all part of a mission. But none of that changed the fact that she had lied to me. That she had kept me in the dark, letting me spiral into suspicion and doubt. I knew I couldn't just brush this off. Trust doesn't recover overnight, and at that moment, I wasn't even sure if it could recover at all. I didn't go home that night. I drove around the city, lost in my own thoughts, trying to process everything. By the time I pulled into the driveway the next morning, The sun was already creeping up over the horizon. The house looked the same as it always had, but something inside me had shifted. I no longer saw it as the home we built together. It felt like a shell, filled with secrets and shadows I hadn't known existed. Anna was waiting for me in the kitchen, her face pale, dark circles under her eyes. She had probably been up all night, too. When she saw me, she didn't say anything at first, just stood there, wringing her hands, clearly unsure of how to begin. "I'm sorry, Michael," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I should have told you the truth sooner." I didn't respond right away. I was still too raw, too full of everything that had been building up inside me. "You think?" I said bitterly, crossing my arms. "Do you have any idea what you've put me through?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "I know. I can't imagine how it must have felt. But I didn't have a choice. The work I do, it's dangerous. If something had gone wrong, I couldn't risk you getting involved." "I'm your husband, Anna," I snapped, the frustration spilling over. "You don't think I had the right to know? You don't think I deserved even the slightest bit of truth?" "I wanted to tell you," she said softly. "Every day, I wanted to. But the operation wasn't just about me. There were other people involved, lives at stake. It wasn't just my secret to share." Her words made sense, logically. But emotionally, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. "So what now?" I asked, my voice hard. "You go back to your secret missions, and I'm just supposed to sit here pretending everything is normal?" Anna wiped away a tear. "No, I don't want to live like this anymore, Michael. I'm done with undercover work. This was my last case. I was going to tell you after the operation was over." I looked at her, searching her face for any sign of deception, but all I saw was exhaustion and regret. For the first time, I realized how much of a toll this had taken on her too. She wasn't the enemy. She was my wife, and she had been living a double life, torn between her duty and the person she loved. "I need time, Anna," I said, my voice softening. "I don't know if I can just move past this. You kept me in the dark for so long." She nodded, her shoulders slumping. "I understand. Take all the time you need. But I love you, Michael. I've never stopped loving you." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to just wrap my arms around her and let everything go. But the wound was still too fresh, the trust too shattered. "I need to think," I muttered, turning away from her. As I walked out of the kitchen, I could feel her eyes on me, heavy with sorrow. And for the first time, I didn't know if we could come back from this. The days after our confrontation drifted by in a blur, each one heavier than the last. Anna and I still shared the same space, but it felt like a wall had grown between us, an invisible barrier that I couldn't break down, no matter how much I wanted to. Every conversation was stilted, every glance filled with unspoken tension. She tried to reach out, to talk, but I wasn't ready. I spent hours replaying everything in my mind, going over the moments when I should have noticed something was wrong. I thought about the love letters and how I had jumped to conclusions, imagining the worst. I had built up this narrative of betrayal in my head, only to find out that the real story was far more complicated. But the thing that haunted me the most wasn't just the lies Anna had told to protect her mission. It was the fact that she had chosen that life, chosen to live a secret existence. Even if it meant keeping me out. How could I ever feel secure in our marriage if I couldn't trust that I knew the whole truth? One evening, I found myself sitting on the porch, staring out at the quiet street. The sun was setting, casting everything in a warm, golden light, but I felt none of its warmth. Anna came outside, her footsteps soft on the wooden steps. "Michael," she said quietly, taking a seat beside me. "I know you need space, but we can't keep avoiding this. We need to talk." I sighed, not sure if I was ready for this conversation, but knowing that she was right. "Talk about what, Anna? You lied to me. You built this entire life behind my back." Her shoulders slumped, but she met my eyes, her gaze unwavering. "I didn't want to lie to you. Every day, I wish I could tell you. But I had to keep you safe. This job, it's dangerous, Michael. It's not just about secrets. It's about survival." "And what about us?" I asked, the frustration creeping back into my voice. "Where do we fit into all of this? You've been living this double life, and I had no idea. How am I supposed to trust you after this?" She was quiet for a long moment, her eyes flickering with sadness. "I understand why you feel that way. I do. But everything I did, every lie I told, was to protect you. This case was supposed to be my last. I was planning to walk away after this, to start over with you. The weight of her words hung in the air between us. She had been ready to give up everything for me. To leave behind the world she had been a part of for so long. But could I forgive her for what she had already done? I need to know one thing, I said finally, my voice low. Did you ever feel like you were living two lives? One with me and one in that world? She nodded, her face pale. Yes, and it was tearing me apart. That was the answer I needed, and it was both comforting and devastating at the same time. She had been torn between two realities, unable to fully commit to either one. But now, she was choosing. She was choosing me. I don't know if we can fix this, Anna, I admitted, my voice soft. But I want to try. A glimmer of hope flickered in her eyes. That's all I'm asking for. For the next few weeks, we started the slow process of rebuilding our marriage. It wasn't easy. Trust doesn't just snap back into place after being shattered, and I found myself second-guessing everything. But Anna was patient. She didn't push. She gave me the space I needed, but she also made it clear that she wasn't going anywhere. She was committed to us, to making things right. We started spending more time together, doing simple things, cooking dinner, watching TV, and taking walks around the neighborhood. For the first time in months, there were no late-night phone calls, no cryptic messages. It was just the two of us, and it felt normal. But normal wasn't enough. I still had questions and lingering doubts that gnawed at me, even as we tried to move forward. One evening, as we sat on the couch, I finally voiced the question that had been haunting me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I get that you were undercover, that you couldn't give me all the details. But you could have said something, anything, to let me know that there was more going on. Anna set down her wine glass, her expression serious. I was scared, Michael. I didn't know how you'd react. I didn't want to lose you. You almost did, I said softly, the weight of the truth hanging between us. She nodded, her eyes glistening. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making that up to you if I have to. I love you, Michael. That's never change. The sincerity in her voice was undeniable, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could come back from this. Maybe we could find our way through the wreckage and rebuild something stronger. But it would take time. As we sat there in the quiet, I realized that forgiveness wasn't going to come all at once. It would be a process, a long, difficult process, but I was willing to try. Anna had kept secrets, and it had torn us apart. But now there were no more lies between us. We were starting fresh, one day at a time. I want to trust you again, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But it's going to take time. Anna reached out, her hand covering mine. I'll wait as long as it takes. We sat there, holding onto each other, the silence between us no longer heavy with secrets, but filled with something else, something hopeful. Something worth fighting for. Weeks turned into months, and while things seemed to be improving on the surface, I could still feel the cracks underneath. Anna and I were trying, but every so often, I'd catch myself wondering about her past, questioning if there were more secrets she wasn't telling me. The doubts came in waves. Sometimes they were manageable, but other times they drowned me. One night, after a quiet dinner, Anna came to sit beside me on the couch. I was flipping through channels, pretending to focus on the TV, but my mind was far away. She put her hand on my arm, her touch gentle but firm. Michael, she said softly, we need to talk. I turned the TV off and faced her, my heart tightening. About what? About us, she said, her voice steady. I know you're still struggling to trust me, and I don't blame you. But we can't keep pretending like everything's fine. It's not. I sighed, rubbing my hand over my face. She was right. The walls between us hadn't disappeared, they were just thinner now, but still there. I'm trying, Anna. I really am. But I can't just flip a switch and pretend the last few months didn't happen. I'm not asking you to pretend, she said. I know what I did hurt you, and I'll carry that guilt for a long time. But I need to know if we can move forward. Because if we keep dragging this out, it's only going to make things worse. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. But she was also someone new, someone I didn't fully know or understand. That was the hardest part. The version of her that existed in my mind was shattered, replaced by this complex, secretive person who had hidden a part of herself from me. I don't know if I can ever fully get there, I admitted, my voice raw. Every time I think we're making progress, something pulls me back. I keep wondering if there's more you haven't told me, if I'm still missing pieces of the story. Anna's eyes filled with sadness, but she didn't flinch. There's nothing else, Michael. No more secrets. I swear to you, I'm done with that life. I've left it behind, for good. But I can't keep proving that to you every day. At some point, you'll have to believe me. Her words stung, but I knew she was right. The problem wasn't her anymore, it was me. I was holding onto the past, onto the lies, and if I didn't let go soon, we would never move forward. I want to believe you, I said, my voice softer now. But I don't know how to just let go of everything. It's like, part of me is still stuck in that hotel room, waiting for something else to be revealed. Anna reached out and took my hand, her grip warm and reassuring. Then let's start from there, she said. From that moment, and rebuild from scratch. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could start over. Maybe we could find a way through the mess. I'm willing to try, I said, squeezing her hand. I don't want to lose you, Anna. She smiled, her eyes glistening. You won't. Not if we do this together. We didn't have a grand plan. No step-by-step guide to repair the damage. Instead, we took things one day at a time, starting small. We spent more time talking, really talking. Not just about our relationship, but about everything. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was getting to know her again, piece by piece. She shared more about her past, things she'd kept hidden because of her job. It was painful for her, I could see that, but she was trying. And for that, I was grateful. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to the mountains. A cabin, just the two of us. Away from the noise of the city and the ghosts of our old life. It was something we used to do every year, a tradition that had faded as our lives got busier. But now, it felt like the perfect escape. The drive up was quiet and peaceful. The roads wound through thick forests, the autumn leaves painting the landscape in shades of orange and red. Anna had her hand resting on my knee, and for the first time in months, it felt natural. There was no tension, no unspoken words hanging in the air. When we arrived, the cabin was just as I remembered, rustic, with a stone fireplace and a view of the lake that stretched out into the horizon. We unpacked, settled in, and spent the evening by the fire, sipping wine and talking. It felt good to be away from everything, to focus on us without the weight of the outside world pressing down. Later that night, as we sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets and listening to the wind rustling through the trees, Anna turned to me. I know things haven't been easy, she said quietly, but I'm glad we're here. I've missed this, missed us. I looked at her, the firelight flickering in her eyes, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of calm. I've missed it too, I admitted. It feels different now. But in a good way. She smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder. That's because we're different. We've been through hell, but we're still standing. I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her closer. Yeah, we are. For the rest of the weekend, we focused on being present and on reconnecting. We hiked through the trails, cooked meals together, and spent hours sitting by the lake, just talking. And slowly, without either of us realizing it, the cracks between us began to heal. The trust didn't come back all at once, but brick by brick, we were rebuilding the foundation of our relationship. I still had moments of doubt, times when the memories of those dark months would creep back into my mind. But every time, Anna was there. Steady and constant, showing me that we could get through it together. By the time we packed up and headed back to the city, something had shifted between us. We weren't the same couple we had been before, but that was okay. In fact, it was better. We were stronger now, forged by the fire of everything we had been through. And as we drove home, I knew that no matter what came next, we could face it, together. Returning from the mountains felt like waking from a dream. The cabin had been a bubble where Anna and I could exist without distractions. Without the shadows of our past creeping in. But back in the city, reality hit hard. The routine of everyday life resumed, and with it, the complexities of rebuilding a marriage that had nearly crumbled. I went back to work, trying to focus on projects that had piled up during the months of chaos. Anna had left her previous career, as she promised, and was in the process of figuring out what came next. It was strange seeing her at home more, not rushing off to answer mysterious calls or disappear for hours on end. For the first time in years, I felt like I could predict where she'd be at any given moment. But the peace was fragile, like walking on thin ice. One wrong step, and everything could shatter again. There were times when a sudden noise or a glance would remind me of the secrets, of how close we had come to losing it all. And yet, Anna remained steady, patient, never pushing too hard. One evening, as we were sitting down for dinner, I felt the familiar tension bubbling up again. I hadn't expected it, but it hit me out of nowhere. The memory of finding the love letters, the gut-wrenching fear that had gripped me in that moment. It was still there, lurking under the surface. Anna must have sensed it because she reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. "What's wrong?" she asked softly, her eyes full of concern. I hesitated, not wanting to ruin the fragile peace we had worked so hard to build. But the weight of it was too much to carry alone. "I keep thinking about that night," I admitted, my voice low. "The letters, the hotel, all of it. I thought I had moved past it, but sometimes it just comes back. I can't shake the feeling that something else could go wrong." Anna's face softened, and she nodded, understanding immediately. "I know it's not easy, Michael. I've put you through so much. But I promise you, there's nothing left to hide. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Her words were soothing, but the fear still lingered. How could I truly trust again after everything that had happened? It felt like every step forward could be undone in an instant. And I didn't know how to stop that fear from controlling me. "We've come so far," Anna said, squeezing my hand. "But it's okay if you're still struggling. Healing takes time, and I'll be here through all of it. I just need you to trust that I'm not the same person I was when all of this started." I took a deep breath, feeling the tension slowly start to ease. She was right. We had both changed, and while the fear might never completely disappear, I had to believe that we were moving in the right direction. "I'll try," I said quietly. "I want to trust again. I want us to be okay." Anna smiled, her eyes shining with the same warmth that had drawn me to her all those years ago. "We will be, one step at a time." As the weeks went on, things slowly began to feel more normal. We were settling into a new rhythm, one where there were no more secrets, no more hidden agendas. I was learning to trust Anna again, and she was doing everything she could to prove that our marriage was her top priority. But life, as it often does, had other plans. It started one afternoon when I was at work, just finishing up a call with a client. My phone buzzed on the desk, and I glanced at the screen, expecting it to be Anna or a colleague. Instead, it was a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Michael here," I said, keeping my voice neutral. There was a brief pause, and then a voice I hadn't heard in a long time spoke on the other end. "Michael, it's Jason. We need to talk." Jason. The name sent a jolt through me. He had been Anna's handler, the one in charge of her undercover operation, the man who had orchestrated so much of the chaos that had nearly destroyed us. I hadn't heard from him since Anna had left the agency, and I had hoped that part of our life was firmly in the past. "What do you want?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. "It's not about Anna," he said quickly as if sensing my hostility. "This is about something bigger. Something I need your help with." I didn't trust him, not after everything that had happened. But the urgency in his voice made me pause. "What kind of help?" I asked warily. "There's a situation. Something connected to Anna's last case. I can't explain it over the phone, but I need to meet with you. It's important, Michael. And it involves you, whether you like it or not." My stomach tightened. The last thing I wanted was to be dragged back into the world Anna had fought so hard to leave behind. But Jason wasn't the type to reach out unless it was serious. If there was something that could affect us, I needed to know. "Fine," I said after a long pause. "When and where?" He gave me a time and place, some cafe downtown, and then hung up before I could ask any more questions. I sat there for a few moments, staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. Should I tell Anna? Part of me wanted to, but another part knew that she had left that life behind for a reason. This might be something I needed to handle on my own. When I got home that night, Anna was waiting for me in the kitchen, a glass of wine in hand. She looked relaxed, happier than I had seen her in a long time. "How was your day?" she asked, her smile warm. I hesitated, the weight of Jason's call pressing down on me. "It was fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Just the usual work stuff." I hated lying to her, especially after everything we had been through. But I didn't want to worry her, not until I knew more. Whatever Jason wanted, I'd find out tomorrow. And then I'd decide what to do. As we sat down to dinner, I tried to push the thought of Jason out of my mind, focusing instead on the moment. Anna had worked so hard to put the past behind her, and I wasn't about to let some shadow from her old life pull us back into that darkness. But deep down, I knew that whatever was coming next, it wouldn't be that simple. The past had a way of catching up, no matter how fast you tried to run from it. The next day, I couldn't focus on anything. The thought of meeting Jason gnawed at me, distracting me from work. Every time my phone buzzed or a colleague passed by, I felt on edge, waiting for something to explode. When I finally walked into the cafe, Jason was already there, sitting at a corner table with his back to the wall. He looked older than I remembered, his face lined with stress and fatigue. The easy confidence he used to carry seemed dimmed, replaced by a heavy tension that clung to him like a shadow. He waved me over, his expression serious. No small talk, no pleasantries, just straight to business. "Michael," he said as I sat down. "Thanks for coming." I didn't bother with pleasantries either. "What's this about, Jason? I thought Anna's involvement in all of this was over." He nodded, taking a sip of his coffee. "It is, for her. But something from that last case has resurfaced, and I didn't want to involve her unless absolutely necessary. I thought you should know first." I felt a chill run through me. The last thing I wanted was to drag Anna back into the nightmare she'd barely escaped. "Go on," I said, my voice tight. Jason leaned forward, lowering his voice. "There's a man named Vincent Russo. He was part of the operation, but we never managed to pin anything on him. He's dangerous, Michael. Connected, smart, and vengeful. We recently got intel that he's been asking questions about Anna, about her role in the case." My chest tightened. "Why? The case is closed. Anna left all of that behind." Jason nodded grimly. "I thought so too. But Russo doesn't forget. He's the kind of guy who holds grudges, and we've just learned that he's been sniffing around, asking about people involved in the operation. I think he's planning something that could put both you and Anna at risk." I clenched my fists under the table, my mind racing. "What are you saying? That we're being targeted?" "I'm saying you need to be careful," Jason said. "Russo isn't someone who gives up easily. I don't know what he's planning, but he's dangerous. You and Anna need to lay low for a while." I sat back in my chair, trying to process everything. It was like a nightmare that wouldn't end. Just when we thought we were free, something new would pull us back. I had no idea who Vincent Russo was, but the fact that he was looking for Anna set off alarm bells. "What are you doing about it?" I asked, my voice harder than I intended. "We're monitoring the situation," Jason said, his tone defensive. "But Russo is slippery. He's not stupid. He knows how to stay off the radar. That's why I'm telling you to be cautious. Keep an eye out, watch your backs." I shook my head, feeling the weight of everything bearing down on me. "I don't want to drag Anna back into this, Jason. She's moved on. We both have." "I know," Jason said. "And I'll do everything I can to keep her out of it. But you needed to know what was going on. If Russo starts making moves, you'll be the first to know." I didn't trust Jason. Not entirely. He had his own agenda, and I wasn't sure if protecting us was really his priority. But I couldn't ignore the warning. If this Russo guy was dangerous, I needed to protect Anna. No matter what. I stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. "Thanks for the heads up," I said flatly. "But I'm not dragging Anna into this unless I have to." Jason nodded. "Fair enough. Just be careful, Michael. Russo doesn't play by the rules." As I walked out of the cafe, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. I had hoped we could leave all of this behind, but the past had a way of catching up, no matter how fast you tried to outrun it. When I got home that evening, Anna was sitting on the couch, reading a book. The sight of her there, relaxed and peaceful, only heightened the tension I felt. How could I tell her that someone from her past was hunting us down? How could I ruin the fragile peace we'd worked so hard to build? But I couldn't hide it from her forever. She had the right to know what was coming. "Hey," I said, sitting down beside her. "There's something I need to talk to you about." She put down her book, concern immediately flashing across her face. "What is it?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "I met with Jason today." Her eyes widened. "Jason? Why? I thought we were done with all of that." "I thought so too," I said, running a hand through my hair. "But he called me, said there's something serious going on. Someone from your last case, Vincent Russo. He's been asking questions about you. About your involvement in the operation." Anna's face went pale. "Russo? I thought we'd closed the case on him." "So did Jason," I said. "But apparently, Russo's not the kind of guy to let things go. Jason thinks he's planning something that could put us both at risk." For a moment, Anna didn't say anything. She just sat there, staring at the floor, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she looked up at me, her voice steady but cold. "What are we supposed to do now?" I could hear the fear beneath her calm tone. The same fear that had been eating away at me since Jason's call. Jason said to lay low for a while, to watch our backs. He doesn't know exactly what Russo's planning is, but it's clear that we can't just ignore it. Anna stood up, pacing the room, her arms crossed over her chest. I left that life behind, Michael. I swore I wouldn't go back to it. And now this? I know, I said quietly. But we don't have a choice. We need to protect ourselves. I won't let anyone hurt you. She stopped pacing, turning to face me. I don't want to go back to being that person. Always looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I can't live like that again. And I don't want that for you either, I said, standing up and walking over to her. But we'll get through this, Anna. We'll figure it out together. She nodded, though I could see the worry in her eyes. What if Russo comes after us? What if Jason can't stop him? We'll be ready, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. We've been through worse, haven't we? Anna gave a small, bitter laugh. I thought we had. But this feels different. I pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. We'll be okay, I whispered, though deep down, I wasn't sure if I believed it. The shadows of our past were closing in, and for the first time, I didn't know if we'd be able to outrun them. The days after my conversation with Jason felt like living in a fog. Every knock on the door, every phone call, every passing car made my pulse race. Anna and I tried to keep up the facade of normalcy, but it was like walking on eggshells, waiting for something to break. Anna had grown quieter, the tension seeping into every corner of our lives. She didn't talk about Russo, but I could see it in her eyes, the fear, the dread. We were both trying to act like everything was fine, but the shadow of danger loomed too large to ignore. Then one night, the storm hit. It was late, past midnight, and I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard it. A soft creak outside the window, the unmistakable shuffle of footsteps. My body tensed, and I reached for Anna, who was still beside me, fast asleep. My heart pounded in my chest as I slowly slid out of bed, careful not to wake her. I moved quietly toward the living room, grabbing the baseball bat I kept by the door for emergencies. My mind raced, thinking of all the warnings Jason had given me. Russo was dangerous, violent. This was it, the moment we'd been dreading. As I peered through the window, I saw a dark figure moving across the yard, creeping toward the house. My grip tightened on the bat. Whoever it was, they were moving with purpose, like they knew exactly what they were doing. I had no choice. I wasn't going to let someone invade my home, not when Anna and I had already been through so much. I flung the door open, charging out onto the porch, bat raised, ready for a fight. Who the hell are you? I shouted, my voice cutting through the still night air. The figure froze, slowly turning toward me. Under the dim light of the porch, I saw his face. It was older, more lined with age, but unmistakable. Vincent Russo. He smiled, a cold, predatory smile that sent a chill down my spine. I was wondering when you'd come out, he said, his voice low and smooth like this was all a game. I'm impressed, Michael. You've got guts. My heart was racing, and my hands shaking as I kept the bat raised. What do you want, Russo? Why are you here? Russo took a step closer, his eyes never leaving mine. I'm here for Anna. She and I have unfinished business. You're not getting anywhere near her, I growled, taking a step forward, trying to make myself look bigger, braver than I felt. Whatever you think you're doing, it ends here. Russo chuckled as if amused by my bravado. You think you can protect her? You don't even know half of what she's capable of, Michael. She was never honest with you. Not then, not now. My blood boiled. I knew he was trying to get into my head, to shake my confidence, but I wasn't going to let him. Not after everything Anna and I had been through. She's not who you think she is anymore, I said, my voice firm. She left that life behind, and you need to do the same. Russo's smile faded, his expression hardening. You don't get to make that call. She owes me, and I'm here to collect. I didn't wait for him to make the next move. With a surge of adrenaline, I swung the bat at him, aiming for his chest. But Russo was quicker than I expected. He dodged to the side, grabbing my arm and twisting it painfully behind my back. The bat clattered to the ground as I gasped in pain. I've dealt with guys like you before, Russo hissed in my ear, his grip tightening. You think you're tough, think you can protect her. But you're just a pawn in her game. I struggled against him, but Russo was strong, his years of experience clear in the way he moved. I felt my knees buckle as he forced me down, his hand pressing harder against my back. But then I heard it, footsteps behind us. I craned my neck, trying to see, and there she was. Anna. She was standing in the doorway. Her face pale but determined. And in her hand was a gun, a sleek, black handgun, pointed directly at Russo. "Let him go," she said, her voice cold and steady. Russo hesitated for a moment, his eyes flicking from me to Anna. He smiled again, that same twisted smile. "I knew you wouldn't be able to stay away. I'm not going to ask again," Anna said, her finger hovering over the trigger. "Let him go, or I'll shoot." For a moment, everything stood still. Russo's grip on me loosened slightly. But he didn't let go. His eyes were locked on Anna, like he was trying to read her, trying to figure out if she was bluffing. Then, slowly, he released me, raising his hands in mock surrender. "You've got a lot of nerve, Anna. But I've always liked that about you." Anna didn't lower the gun. "Get out of here, Vincent. Don't come back." Russo took a step back, his eyes narrowing. "This isn't over," he said, his voice full of menace. "You know it's not." Without another word, he turned and disappeared into the night, leaving Anna and me standing there, shaken but alive. I stood up, rubbing my sore arm, and turned to face Anna. She was still holding the gun, her hands trembling slightly now that the danger had passed. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, lowering the gun and taking a deep breath. "I'm fine. But we need to talk, Michael. About everything." I didn't argue. I knew this conversation was long overdue. As we walked back inside, I realized that whatever we were about to face, we'd do it together. The storm wasn't over yet, but for the first time, I knew we had a chance. Anna had faced her past, and so had I now. We just had to figure out what came next.